In this video, we're going to be using the Marquee tools and some other basic editing functions and tools, along with introducing a few intermediate editing techniques such as clipping masks and layer masks. If you would like to follow along, the files for this video will be linked down below in the description for you to download. Let's get started. Okay, so we have our image here that has a bunch of different objects on it that we want to break into separate layers so that we can edit each one individually. Here's our background layer, which is going to be our original image, and we want to duplicate that. We can either do this by going to the layer menu and duplicate layer, and here's our box, and we can rename our layer. I'm just going to keep it as background copy. And now we have, as you can see, I toggled the visibility so that the background, the original layer, is no longer visible so we don't get confused with the copy and the original. I'm going to go over and select our Marquee tool, and within it I'm going to use the ellipse tool to select this ball and put it on its own separate layer. I'm just clicking and dragging to create a circle, and we need to get a little bit closer in on that so that we can see the selection a little bit better. So I did a Control plus to zoom in, and then to get the little hand to move my image, I'm using the space bar. And now I can just click within the selection to move it. And as you can see, it's just on the outside of that ball a little bit. So I want to transform my selection to alter it instead of creating a whole new selection. And to do that, if I click on any of those boxes and get that straight arrow there, it will transform the selection uniformly or proportionally, meaning all sides are going to be adjusted. If I only want one particular side adjusted, I click and hold the Shift key. Alright, hold the Shift key and then click, and then I move the side that I want to adjust. So we're going through here and just a couple of examples so that you can see, but I think this circle looks pretty good all around. But I'm going to be a little bit nitpicky here and see what I can do. And after I'm done and I'm satisfied with it, you can hit enter on your keyboard or the check mark, up at the top to finalize your selection. Now that I'm satisfied with that selection, I'm going to do a Control C for copy, Control V for paste, and it creates a new layer. And before I do anything, I'm going to go up and select my Move tool. And as you can see, there's the new layer. It's going to have that ball and that ball alone. And I'm going to move that over so that I can see and confirm that I have actually made that selection. Now I'm going to rename the layer as ball so that I know which layer is which going forward, because we're going to have several different layers. And now I'm going to go back to my ellipse tool and we're going to take a look at other functions of this tool. When you use only the mouse and click and drag, you can make pretty much an oval or elliptical shape with this tool. However, if you press the Shift key as you're holding the mouse and dragging, it makes a perfect circle. And as you can see, you can easily make a perfect circle, move it over on top of the thing that you would like to select, such as a ball, which is in theory a perfect circle. So now I have deselected my selection using the Control D as in dog, and we're going to look at how to go from the center of your item and create that perfect circle. So what I did was I started in the center, I held Shift for the perfect circle, and then Alt or Control or Option if you're on a Mac to start and keep the selection going from the center. So my selection isn't as I would prefer. It's just a little bit too large on the right-hand side if you look closely. So I went to my select menu option and did transform selection. And here I'm going to do the transform my selection uniformly and just on one side if needed, using my Shift key as I click and drag. And then again, once I'm happy with my selection, I will either hit enter on my keyboard or go up to my checkbox. In this case, I use the enter key. Okay, so keep in mind that we have a couple different layers going here. We have the original ball, which is on the background copy layer. And then we have the new ball, which is on a layer of its own over here, which is currently active and selected, as you can see by the lighter gray color. I want to be working on the background copy since that's where my selection is. And once I have that highlighted and that's the active layer, I do the Control C, Control V once again to create a new ball on its own layer. And as you can see, I use my move tool to move the new ball, and I'm going to rename this as ball 2 so that I can keep each layer separate. And I know they look the same right now, but we will change that so they're a little bit more identifiable. Okay, so now let's take a look at the rectangular marquee tool, which is housed in the same spot on the toolbar menu as the elliptical marquee tool. You just click and hold and then make your selection as to which one you want to use. It works in the same and similar fashion as the elliptical tool. If I hold shift, I get a perfect square as I click and drag. If I don't hold shift, then I am able to make a rectangle. So let's go up here to the book and try this tool out. I'm going to start in the middle by holding my Alt or Option key if you're on a Mac. And as you can see, I can make a rectangle starting from the center. Still holding the Alt or Option key and then depressing the Shift key at the same time, I'm now able to make a perfect square. So there's my square, but as you can see, the book is kind of wonky as far as its layout. So I'm going to go up to Select and transform my selection and rotate my square. And then from here, I'm going to alter the edge. I'm going to hold my Shift key and drag that edge down to meet my image. And Shift key again, click and drag. So I'm only moving one side instead of moving the selection or adjusting the selection proportionally. I'm going to try to get it as close as possible to each side. And then once I'm happy with my selection, I will hit enter or click the checkbox at the top and then make sure my background copy layer is active for my next move, which is the copy and paste, so that I can create a new layer with only the book on it. I went to my move tool so that I can move that layer and confirm. And as you can see, that's not the best tool because I've got corners here of my selection, and you can't really see that one because it's white on white, but there's corners where there are sharp corners where there should be rounded corners. So I'm going to delete this layer and start again. I can either click and drag the layer down to that trash can or just make sure the layer is active and then click on the trash can.